we've outlined why men don't seek help or don't talk. So I think we've laid it out, and I think the next job is to learn more about it yourself, realize that you're not alone in this, and to start the journey somewhere. And, you know, as Charlie was just saying, pick and choose who you start the journey with. But I think that we have still got a challenge for men, for everybody, because we've still got such a lot of stigma. But I think that initiatives that the workplace have got, and yourselves, I think we've laid out what to pay attention to, start noticing, and then start acting on what you notice.
One of the positive legacies that I see coming out of the COVID-19 situation, you know, we've all learned that we can survive by working flexibly. And I think if flexible working practices become a legacy of the COVID crisis, that should encourage a better spread of the burden across mothers' shoulders, fathers' shoulders, maybe people with personal commitments that don't reflect the typical male stereotype. And if we can spread that burden and normalize it, hopefully it's not all going to be resting on any one segment's shoulders.
Well, I think, you know, this whole situation is quite clearly going to kick up a recession. And I think when you have economic pressure on people, I mean, and not just on men, but also women, I think that is a recipe for mental health challenges. So I think it is going to be a very tricky 2021, given you know, hopefully this pandemic eventually finishes, but the kind of economic fallout as a result of that, and consequential unemployment and pressure on salaries, and then we've got Brexit as well, haven't we? So, you know, who knows what's going to happen in terms of goods. I think there's going to be a lot of a challenging couple of years ahead, and hence having these kind of honest conversations is going to be even more and more important. I mean, the old school traits of masculinity are around the kind of alpha male, right? The breadwinner, the chest-beating, strong man. And the new school of masculinity, in my view, is more of the beta male. It's the male who has a softer side, who is able to show weakness, who, to use Maggie's term, creates a psychologically safe environment. One that has a high EQ, an emotional intelligence, and is kind of receptive to having, you know, conversations about emotions, for example. I think that really that's the new school of masculinity, and I think it's happening, right? I think it is happening.
You know, seeing evidence of the shifts in some of the corporates that like I've never seen before. So I think that there is a willingness. I loved what Scott said about the kind of leveling of all responsibilities and leveling of the pressure. And I've never really thought about it in that way, Scott, but that is such a positive to flexible working. But I think the challenge certainly is to, you know, reduce the banter a bit and start to recognize this as a serious issue that we all need to engage in.
New masculinity could redefine the definition of the word brave, because I think new brave won't be sort of macho and banging your chest. It'll be brave enough to talk about your feelings, as Charlie's been. It'll be brave enough to actually listen to the answer when you ask somebody how they're feeling.
Yes.
It'll be brave enough to leave the office at 4 o'clock because you don't want to miss your daughter's ballet recital.
Whether it's, you know, our relationship with our children, or the way we talk to our friends, or the way we listen to our friends as well. These are all things which are developing and changing, and I think are, you know, hopefully for the better.
From a URW point of view, the BU network, we can just start reinforcing the message behind the scenes. But I think actually we've all got a responsibility to lead by example and to open up a bit. I think just by actually asking somebody how they're doing and patiently listening for the answer and showing that you actually give a damn what the answer is. I think it's those baby steps that will just make it a new way of being.
Scott said, it's about role modeling, I think, is the most important thing. It's asking the questions and chipping away at this as a much bigger problem, as a long-term issue. Just consistently taking an interest and actually giving a damn, as he said, and role modeling vulnerability in yourself. You know, vulnerability breeds vulnerability. There's a beautiful domino effect of it. I mean, I've been vulnerable with friends of mine who then come back to me years later and go, "Oh my God, I've started being vulnerable with my friends, and now they're giving it back to me, and our relationships are much better." And so, yeah, vulnerability breeds vulnerability.
I'm desperate to address language and to talk about the word mental. So an awful lot of people won't come along to things that have got mental in the title. And it's because once we hear the word mental, we only assume illness. So I think that we've got a lot of work to do about saying the word a lot. And often in the workplace, people say to me, "Well, can't we call it something different?" No, we can't, because it's mental health and mental illness. So I think the first thing is we've got to be comfortable with the word mental and know that we all have mental health. So that's one piece, stigma, that I think we've got to deal with. The other thing is that I think that there's a lot of weight behind those statistics, I think, Mark, that is relevant. That if you're basing your past experience as your personal past experience of not being able to say it in the workplace because of fear, well, let's look at the situational anxiety that we're in now, because people are very afraid of losing their jobs. They're very afraid of not being considered for promotion. They're very afraid of all sorts of things that may be an obstacle to them talking honestly again. So even though the culture is good, you know, we're all being more open, but let's take caution about the situational anxiety that people are going to still maybe keep things in or make other excuses for being off sick. I think, as Charlie was saying, there's a lot of fear next year for dealing with mental health.
I think it was unwavering support, to be honest. You know, absolute kind of, I guess, unconditional love, kind of the, you know, her telling me very, you know, and acting on the fact that she would be there for me, and giving me the space to kind of explore this stuff, to open up and to actually kind of divulge what was actually going on inside me. So I think giving, you know, people you care about the certainty that you're there to support them, and that will enable them to in their own time. And again, this is it's not a quick fix. This takes time, and so giving them the space but not pushing too hard, I think, is the key thing.
Knowing that that person is there by your side, but allowing them to come out with it in their own time and with their own degree of comfort, or I guess failing that, my eldest daughter jokes that if ever she needs to break the ice with her father because I'm being too stoic or silent, she forces me to watch Marley and Me. I don't know if you've ever watched the movie about the dog, and when it dies at the end and blubbering like a baby, and then she says, "Oh, I've done it, I've broken the ice."
There's a couple of alternative things that I'd like to say, as well as wholehearted support for Charlie and Scott's point. But I also want to talk about the other side of that how very tiring and exhausting it is to offer support to somebody who maybe not see that they are going to take it or worthy of taking it. The two sides to that, and here's where I'm speaking out for allies, whether that be mental health allies, whether that be really caring workplaces or managers in those workplaces. I think sometimes it's very, very difficult to keep listening when you're trying to balance the household and the family and everything around. So just occasionally, it might not be that you are the person that can take that burden. And so finding out more yourself about what it is that your partner might be experiencing and how to signpost that and how to help yourself and who to choose to help yourself with is the other side of the coin, because it can be very exhausting to listen all the time to very negative ideology and schemas that, you know, that people might be in within their illness.
I'm going to say vulnerability is the key. It really is. It's amazing the positive response you get when you're vulnerable. I was afraid for many years for not opening up and telling people about what I was going through. I have been so unbelievably pleasantly surprised by the overwhelming support that I have received as a result of being vulnerable. So if you're struggling, open up, talk about it, be vulnerable. It's a wonderful thing.
And get good at noticing yourself, those you love and care about, and those that you work with. And then when you have noticed, dare greatly to say or do something about it.
I guess I would say, if it's you, take that first step. If it's somebody that you know and love, help them take that first step. Because I think instinctively we all know, but we forget sometimes that actually when you do just open up to even just a little bit, you start to feel the weight lifting from your shoulders. And there's all the expressions about a problem shared is a problem half, and there's a reason there are those expressions in the English language, because there's a hell of a lot of truth to them. So just take that first step, encourage others to take that first step, and just open up, because as soon as you open the door, even just a little crack, it gets easier.
And I think the other things to say is, look after yourselves and take the time to look after yourselves. Self-care is incredibly important as a routine and a ritual. And if you aren't feeling yourself, you need to really acknowledge that, I think. And that's something which, particularly through lockdown, I think people need to remember as we're sort of thrown into changing routines and different ways of working. So, guys, I want to say thank you to all three of you. Thank you to Charlie, Maggie, and thanks so much to Scott as well for joining us for the panel. It's been absolutely great to listen to you all. I hope that those of you watching today have had good experience and taken something away from it. We are all available, I think, to carry the conversation on via LinkedIn, or if you want our email addresses, please do get in touch.